Hello Jordi, thank you very much for being on Veggie Channel. I'm very proud to get to know you in Rio.
Thank you.
I've been following your story on the web, and I said if I could get to London and meet with you directly, I would love to know deeply your story, because I think people want to know this kind of story, because you are an example.
Thank you.
Not only for the low reason now we are going to talk about, but first of all, I would say for your story, the way you started your life, the way you became vegan, the way you love the nature, the animals. So let's start this journey with you. Please tell us, first of all, where we are at the moment. Okay, we are in London, we are in a lawyer office. There is a heavy reason for this. So start from that and then we go backward.
Yes, we are in my solicitor's office because I'm involved in a legal case now. I'm in litigation because I was fired by my former employer because I'm an ethical vegan. And I took my employers to the tribunal, to the employment tribunal. And as part of the process to get this legal case going, we realized that veganism in the UK is not yet a protected philosophical belief. And my case will be the first case where that will be tested in court. And suddenly my case, that was just my case, now it become a case of interest for all vegans in the UK, because if I'm successful, then all vegans in the UK will become better protected against discrimination. Well, in the UK now, but obviously it can inspire any country
in the world.
Because they will say, oh, if they can do it, we can do it. There are vegans everywhere in the world. There are equality laws everywhere in the world. It's a matter of doing it the same thing I've been doing it. And of course, all the evidence I'll be producing can be used for other countries because the veganism is the same.
I want to say to all our viewers, this cause is for all of us, is for everybody around the world. So don't let Jordi alone. Listen carefully what he's telling us.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't plan this, but Providence has provided me this opportunity to help all the vegans in the world, because veganism is growing so fast. We enter in this new phase in veganism, which is the policy phase, the phase where laws and legislation and policy and regulation starts to play a role in getting the world vegan. And perhaps my case is the first step towards that wider door that is opening to us to start developing legislation and laws to make easier for people to become vegan, easier for people to stay vegan, and in the end, more animals will be helped if there are more vegans in the world.
So what it is your case about? Let us know shortly before.
Yeah, my case is very simple in a way. So I was working for an animal welfare organization. In the UK, when you join any company, you have to auto-enroll them into a pension fund. That's what they did to me. I checked the pension fund and I realized that the money was going to pharmaceutical companies that test on animals, tobacco companies, petrol companies, companies I would not consider myself ethical, especially for an animal welfare organization. So when I told my bosses about it...
Unbelievable. I mean,
yeah.
An ethical company?
Yeah, I was very surprised. I told my bosses, nothing changed for a long time. And eventually I told my colleagues, especially my vegan colleagues, because if you don't like the pension fund, you can change your pension fund. So they needed to know. And because I told my colleagues, I was fired. Then when I kind of analyzed the reasons that they told me about why I was fired in the letter of dismissal.
You can prove this, yes?
Yeah, exactly. I have a letter of dismissal, I have a disciplinary hearing, which was recorded, all this. When you analyze it, you realize that the actual reason that I believe I was fired is because I was an ethical vegan. I did this because I was an ethical vegan. I would do it again because I was an ethical vegan. Therefore, they realized people with my belief that they didn't like me to carry on working there. Then I realized, okay, I have a case. I have a legal case for discrimination for being an ethical vegan. And because I was a whistleblower as well, there are laws that protect whistleblowers in this country. So there were two different laws. And my case will address both laws. What I didn't know when I started is that I was going to be the first case about veganism. And in order for any philosophical belief to be admitted as a potential discrimination case, it needs to be determined by the legal system whether that belief qualifies as a protected belief. And that's where my first step in my legal process will be a pre-hearing, where the question about whether ethical veganism is a protected belief and the Equalities Act 2010 will be discussed. And the judge will say, yes, it's protected, or no, it's not. If it is protected, then my case will continue, and then we'll carry on checking whether I was discriminated because of that.
This is a very serious matter, and you already have a lot of supporters. You have a crowdfunding going on.
Exactly.
And which point have you reached?
Yeah, I didn't have the money at the beginning to do this. And then my lawyer suggested, well, you should crowdfund if you don't have the money, because I don't qualify for any grant or anything that might allow me or have an insurance or anything like that to allow me to use this. So I started the crowdfunding process very early. More than 350 people have donated, but little amounts. Yeah. But the problem is, because the responsibility is very big, I don't want to just do this without the best possible lawyers. Yeah. And the best possible lawyers cost a lot of money.
So actually we are in the best possible place.
Exactly. They're experts in whistleblowing, experts in discrimination, and I just don't want to do less than the best. So they cost money. So even if people are giving money, I still haven't reached the target.
We want absolutely that our viewers take into consideration to helping you with this crowdfunding, and maybe next one if there will be any, because this cause is the basis of the changement around the world about law that protects animals but protects people who are fighting for animal rights.
That's right. Yeah.
Now, if you don't mind, I would like to know you as a person deeper, because this is people getting passionate about some causes. So I would like to start from the beginning. How did you start approaching the nature when you were a child?
Well, really all my life I've been involved with animals from the very beginning. And I always look back and I keep finding events in my life that reaffirm my conviction that I was an animal protectionist. That's who I was. But honestly, probably from the very, very beginning when I was a child, the whole thing started. And I think it is the circumstances where I was born. I'm originally from Catalonia. I was born in 1964 in Catalonia, and at that time, Catalonia was under the regime of the Spanish General Francisco Franco, a fascist regime that obviously everybody knows. So I grew up being oppressed by the Spanish nation because Catalonians and Basque and other nations at that time were severely oppressed by the regime.
How did you know you were so small? I mean,
well, from even the beginning, my name, so Jordi was George in Catalan. That was an illegal name because all Catalan names were illegal. So even my parents were not allowed to put my name.
You mean you were not allowed to speak in Catalan?
Not in public. You could do it at home and things like that. I was stopped several times in the street because they heard me speaking Catalan. Somebody stopped me and said, "Speak Christian." They used to insult you this way. So as a child, the first time that this happened in the street, I didn't understand. I went to school and I could not speak and things like that. And they started to explain to me the situation. But then, of course, I watched TV and I was terrified about Spanish police. That's the thing that scared me the most. They were all Spanish, none of them were Catalan, they had mustaches. It was scary because they were the officers that apply the oppression in the regime. And for a Catalan, you feel completely oppressed. And I think that made me sympathetic to other oppressed individuals or victims. So when I started to look at animals and realize that they are also oppressed, I think because of my upbringing, that made me more sympathetic. So that's the beginning. And I think it's not just me. I think everybody that I know that is very committed to the animal cause.
You were not vegan yet? Yeah?
No, not at all. I was not vegan. I never heard the word vegan.
So you wanted to study about nature. Right?
Exactly. My first approach was I want to be closer to animals and far away from people. People seem very dangerous in this world. And animals seem very nice. And I saw documentaries on TV that show people study them in the wild, and I thought, oh, that's what I want to do. I didn't even know there were names and professions for that. I just wanted to do that. Then I learned, okay, there's a word.
So you wanted to find a profession that was matching with your willing.
Exactly, that allowed me to be with animals most of the time and away from people most of the time.
What kind of profession did you
Well, the first word I ever heard is the word naturalist. And that means somebody that studies nature, likes nature.
Sounds nice. Yes.
Yeah, and I thought, that's probably what I need to do. I didn't know that there were degrees or anything like that. Then I learned, oh, there is a degree called biology, study of biology of life. I thought that must be it.
That's interesting.
That's what I'm going to do. So I became interested in being a biologist, and I went to Barcelona University and I studied a degree in biology. Then, of course, looking more deeply, that degree was a 5-year degree, and the first 3 years you were just a biologist, and the last 2 you become a specialized in something.
So you went into a specialization
exactly.
in what?
And there were 3 options: botany, fundamental biology, which is genetics and biochemistry, and zoology, animals.
About animals.
Exactly. And then I realized, okay, that's it. I have to be a zoologist. So I did my 2 extra years, and then
you
became a
became
zoologist. Exactly, both biology and zoology. But then, zoology, there are many types, so you can do zoology in many different ways. I realized that the actual way I wanted to be a zoologist is when you just observe animals in the wild. You don't interfere, you just see what they do, you learn. And there's a word for that, which is ethology. Ethology is the comparative study of animal behavior, but just observe them in the wild. And then I realized, okay, that's what my specialization within zoology should be.
Ethology is observing the behavior of animals.
Yeah, it's the animal behavior study. Some countries don't use this word. In the UK and in America, they hardly ever use this word. But in Europe, it's very common.
What was the animal you wanted to observe?
That is interesting, because ethologists, we don't observe animals, we observe behaviors. And then we compare the same behavior through different species. For instance, you might want to be specialized in aggressive behavior, and you see how different animals become aggressive or express and see trends and patterns. I was interested in social behavior. How animals live together in society. So I needed to go and observe different societies.
Except humans.
Including humans.
Including humans. That's difficult to observe.
But that is the interesting thing about ethology. It makes no distinction between humans and non-humans.
Okay.
It's all we are social, so let's compare.
Living beings.
Living beings, if they get into society, they might see what we have in common with them. What I decided is do my PhD studies on ethology. And I decided to start with one animal. That's the animal that most of the species are social already. These are wasps.
Oh.
Social wasps. They are solitary wasps.
Nobody wants to know about wasps.
That is the thing.
Go away.
That's the thing I'm interested in.
Like mosquitoes.
Exactly. I realized nobody likes wasps. Everybody hates them. Everybody wants to kill them at the first opportunity or run away from them because they feel dangerous. And I thought there would not be many people studying them, so that's a subject I might be good subject to start with.
You found out that they are very intelligent.
Yeah, that is amazing what happens, because I didn't plan that I would become the waspman, because I would become the waspman, the expert in social wasps. But that happened the first day I observed them. Because I wanted to observe, and in the wild I looked for nests. I found one, and I just started to take notes. But the first thing that happened to me is as a personal experience, a very emotional experience that hooked me into the wasp world, and that's why I carry on studying them for over 10 years, which is the guard. There are some wasps that are guarding the entrance of the nest. They take turns.
Guard, you mean?
Like a guard of the Vatican or something. They take turns.
Taller? No?
Well, no, they're like anybody else because they take turns, but that their job is to look for dangers, and if there is dangers, raise the alarm, and everybody comes out and defends the colony. So there was this guard, and an approach wasp guard, and they look at me, obviously saw me turn, because they have a face that can look like that. I saw that she was looking at me, look up and down. She could realize I was a threat and raise the alarm, but
a scan of you.
Yeah, make a judgment. Thought, I'm going to assess which kind of person this person is. And that was decided I was okay, that I was no danger.
Mean he could feel the intentions?
Yeah, he would look at my behavior, look who I was. He obviously realized there was somebody approaching, but because my behavior was kind of very controlled, I didn't show any aggressive movement, there was decided this is not a threat. But in my mind, I never would have thought that a tiny 1-inch individual could judge me with such accuracy. And then I realized, oh, this is far more than we think it is. And I spent a lot of time observing them. And I discovered this amazing world. The societies are so complex, so sophisticated. But the thing that strikes me the most is that how similar they are to humans. And that's what something awoke in my head that was, okay, there's something going on here. We treat these animals as objects, or things don't matter, or things that we should kill if they annoy us. And yet, they're almost like us. And then is the animal protectionism in me grew, because I started to realize there's something wrong. Something needs to be done to help this. The more I studied them, the more I realized how similar they were to us and how much they needed help because they were so unfairly treated. Not just what, any animal. And that's why I wanted to be something more than just a scientist.
How do you think it's going to be possible to defend the animals?
The first thing you have to do to defend an animal is to give them the respect they need. The respect begins with accepting who they are, not as an object.
Knowing their function.
Yeah, so the first thing that you would do, you disrespect somebody, is disregard their value. And all animals have an intrinsic value. Doesn't matter which species they are. They don't all want to live. They all want to avoid pain and suffering in bad situations. They all have goals, ambitions, and a struggle to life, and obstacles they have to overcome, like us. So when you recognize that each species is like that, each individual in each species is like that, then you recognize that there is no that difference. And if you accept that you deserve some rights, that you deserve not to be abused or exploited, you have to grant to anybody else the same rights. And that is a fundamental philosophical point about why we animals need protecting. But that only allows you to make the step of avoiding any confrontation with the animals, avoiding hurting them, avoiding exploiting them. But they already exploited. So many, they already abuse hunted or used in laboratories or used for food. So they already need help. It's not enough just to say, I'm not gonna hurt them. We need to actively prevent them to be hurt by other fellow humans, because by generations and centuries, we've been doing it, and it's no need to. There's no need to carry on doing it.
So what do you think differentiates every animal on the earth and the human beings?
Well, to be honest, I find very little difference. Obviously, because we're humans, we feel constantly that we are superior. But that happens with individuals. Each society, they feel, or each population of humans might feel superior, even if they don't say it. Each individual might feel superior. You need to detach yourself from your own view and look humans from a distance. And when you look at humans from a distance, there's very little difference, other than we develop a lot of technology to create very artificial worlds. The kind of things that would motivate us are more or less the same. We all want to live, we all don't want pain, we all want to have food and rest and shelter. These are the same thing. If there is a danger, we want to move away from it. If there is no danger, we want to relax. And so the basic motivations are the same. But we have created such a complicated world on top of the natural world that we often lost in unrealities, and we create problems and try to find solutions, but the solutions sometimes are even worse than the problems, and we abandon who we are because we are trapped in a vicious circle of technology. But if we go back to basics and to look deeply who we actually are, I don't find much of a difference, biologically or even psychologically.
Okay. Jordi, your experiences are so wide because you've been traveling around the world. Could you tell us a little about your trips?
I was in Catalonia when I grew up. As I said, I became a zoologist and ornithologist in Catalonia, but at one point I left. And I didn't go to a place, I go to many places. Why did I leave? I left because I realized that at that time, in the 80s and 90s, being a zoologist and an animal protectionist at the same time, it was not possible to do it there. My discovery that the animals were so similar to us, the more I studied them, made me want to be an animal protectionist, spend time protecting animals. But at the same time, that wasn't a profession in Catalonia, so I could not live from that alone. And I knew there are other places you could do that. You could live from being an animal protectionist and still be a zoologist at the same time. I didn't know where, but I knew there were. So I left. I gave all my possessions, except everything I could fit in a back, in front, in the back,
just
in the back.
On your own.
On your own.
You started traveling.
And I just left. I walked out of Catalonia trying to find a country. And I tried to live in France, Belgium, Holland, all the places. And every place I go, I was trying to find a place where I could do both my protection of animals and my zoology. Of course, I had problems with the language or the culture. Eventually, I arrived to the UK, and somehow it felt right. The first day, I remember I just stepping in, I used a bus, so I went through a boat, and when I landed, it felt right. I arrived to London, it felt right. I realized, so I have to spend more time trying in this country rather than moving as I've been doing every time that didn't work. I tried to survive. My English was almost inexistent, so I had to learn English. And I was working in a very low-paid jobs in London during winter, washing up, delivering leaflets. But in summer, I would hitchhike through all UK and Scotland and Ireland, trying to find a job as a zoologist and animal protectionist. So I would hitchhike because I had no money to buy a lot of tickets. So in any car that stopped me, I asked the question, do you know anywhere they need a zoologist? And of course, most of the time, no, okay, let's move. But funny enough, after long trips, to me, 2 years, 2 years.
Oh, hitchhiking.
Yeah. Again, in when the weather was nice.
It's a very big experience, hitchhiking.
Yeah.
You get to know people.
Absolutely. And because I'm a scientist, I could not help to take a lot of notes about all my hitchhiking adventures and develop to find out how big my thumb should be to stop beta cars. So I did a little study about efficiently in hitchhiking, just to keep my scientific mind fresh. But eventually, one of the cars in Cornwall, with the southwest of England, I asked the same question, and somebody said, "Oh, yes, there might be a sanctuary of primates, the Minnetonka zoologist. It's in Loo, in Cornwall, over there." And I thought, "Oh, I'm going to go there." And I did go there, and again, same thing happened. I entered the sanctuary, and I felt, "Oh, this feels good to me.
It's the right place.
This is the right place." I saw a house. "Oh, that seems to be the place I'm going to be living." I talked to them, and they were all primates that had been born in captivity, but they all had originally been rescued from pets, and they were just being kept there, trying to return them back to the wild if they could, but nobody knew how to do it. And I thought, I can do it. I have the expertise. I'm an animal behavior expert. I can teach the monkeys the skills they need. So I proposed to the keepers there to hire me in order to make that dream they had to return all the monkeys back to the Amazon, because they all were.
Okay, so you don't have experience only on the wasps.
Oh no.
Okay.
So from that point, I was no longer the wasp man. I became the monkey man. I learned so much about these monkeys. They were Amazonian woolly monkeys, and this sanctuary now is called Wild Futures. At the time, it was called the Monkey Sanctuary. And I worked there for 5 years, and my role was trying to return the monkeys back. So I spent a lot of time traveling to Brazil, where these monkeys come from, to try to find a place to move them. And of course, I learned Portuguese then I'm fluent in Portuguese now. And every now and then, when I was returning to the sanctuary in Cornwall, trying to teach the monkeys the skills they had lost after years in captivity and generation. They didn't know how to use the trees.
Did you succeed?
Well, yeah, we had a lot of woods in the area in the sanctuary, so we started to put the food at the top of the woods. I had sometimes with arrows, and sometimes with platforms, so the monkeys had to go and use the trees and use the tail, and I would film them and analyze how each individual would progress in. They were getting there, and I did find a place in the Amazon where we could move them. So everything looks good. We just needed the money, and we didn't have enough money, so we had to find ways to fundraise for this. And one of the ideas I had is perhaps I can give a long talk to raise money for these monkeys. Why long talk? Because
long talk.
Yeah, well, exactly, long. Why long? Well,
I was about to ask you about this question.
Yeah, now you'll find out. What happens is I gave talks at the center. The public in summer came, and normally the talks were 5 minutes, 10 minutes. My talks were 40 minutes, and people loved them. People liked them.
40 minutes.
Yeah, I'm quite animated, and I speak fast, as you can see. And I talk about the monkeys, like how they were in the Amazon. And I realized people like my talks. And I thought, perhaps if I try to break the world's record of the longest talk and ask people to donate money for the monkeys for each hour I was speaking.
So you never stopped your speech? You started talking?
Yeah, I thought I could do it. So I decided, okay, let's do that. And then the press got interested about it, and then because they were interested, I decided, yes, you're going to do it. So I gave a lecture in Plymouth University in 1988, titled From Nothing to Everything, The Natural History of the Universe, because I needed a big subject. So I wanted to talk about anything that we know about this world. So start with the Big Bang, and with me entering the whole. And I did it. I spoke for 13 hours in a lecture. It was a proper lecture.
13?
So 13 hours.
1-3? Okay.
Non-stop, no drinks, no food, no toilet breaks, no notes, all from memory. And people would sponsor me per hour to speak, and they would say, I give you £5 per each hour to speak. And then people were giving money for that. And it was a structured talk, so you knew there was outside a poster that would say...
Did you have some points? Or?
Yeah, everything was in my mind. What I did is, in order to prepare for this, I bought the last book published of any scientific discipline to know the latest information. I read them all. And then I got wallpaper, long wallpaper, and I wrote in a diagram the entire talk. And I put this in the gardens.
And did you make a video of this 13 hours?
Yeah, it was filmed. The whole thing was filmed in a very old-fashioned VHS video. Okay. So I memorized the entire thing. So when I was talking, in my mind, I was seeing the diagram that I have written in the wallpaper, which I still have. I arrived on time, so I knew at what particular hour I should be speaking about particular things. There was a poster outdoors, so people could go in, look at the poster and say, oh, I'm interested about the evolution of fish. I will come at 2:30. Or I'm interested about the Aboriginals in Australia. I'll come at 4:60, because I would more or less know at what time I will be saying.
Okay, this is really amazing. This very long speech, maybe one day somebody will be able to shrink into a shorter video, picking up the best bites. Right. But now I would like to get to know better the way you went through veganism from animal lover, but not still vegan,
Yes.
And then become vegan.
What happens is I left the sanctuary and I started working for the Born Free Foundation, which is anti-captivity, and working about stopping zoos. And I was investigating zoos, inspecting more than 200 zoos, and I managed to close 5 zoos, which was good. But there was something going on in my head that made me feel there's something not quite right. And by chance, I had an accident at work. I fell through the stairs and I got unconscious. So the paramedics came, and while I was unconscious, I had a dream. And the paramedics woke me up, and the first thing I said to paramedics, oh, I had a very amazing dream. And the paramedics said, don't talk about this now, just tell me if you can see, blah, blah, blah. I forgot the dream, completely forgot the dream. But I knew there was an important thing. Since that moment, I thought, oh, I need to find a quiet place to try to remember the dream, because it seemed very important. And then I thought, perhaps I should try to write a novel and go to an isolated place. And by writing a novel, things will come out. I found an island in the north of the North Sea in winter. It was completely dark, isolated in a cottage. And I spent 23 days in isolation writing this novel. And through that writing this novel, I remembered the dream. But I confronted all my rationalizations and reasons and excuses I had put in my life for doing this or not doing that. And that's when I realized that something was not quite right. And the novel was published later on. It's called The Demon's Trial. I used the pseudonym or pen name J.C. Costa. The result of the novel is for me to realization that even if I was trying to help animals through my life, I still was eating animals, I still was wearing animals, hurting other animals.
You found this incoherent.
It made no sense. And before I would just rationalize and give excuse, oh, I'm too old to stop, or I'm addicted to cheese. When I put it on the table, I confronted, realized, no, that's ridiculous. So I came back from the island as an ethical vegan. So it was the process for me to write a book in which I was analyzing my own choices and questioning them.
So you took time to think.
Yeah, I realized, okay, now I have to change my behavior. And since then, I've been an ethical vegan, straight from meat eater to veganism without any vegetarian phase, which I think is the easiest way to do it, to be honest, because for me it was easier. It was more radical, but also more easy for me to understand what my body needed, because I was telling my body very clearly, this is what you're going to be eating from now. I'm not going to have to do it.
So actually, you let me think that this is the problem that people have. They don't have time to stop and think and realize the way things are, really.
Correct. I mean, it's something that sometimes people do when they see an image or a documentary or read something that make them stop. And at that moment they become vegans. Or others, they do it more gradually. Or sometimes, like in my case, you need to help yourself to stop by removing yourself, stop doing what you're doing, think. And ask yourself why you do this, ask yourself whether it's right or not, and then you'll come back with better answers if you give yourself time.
Jordi, I would like to remember to our viewers that you have a crowdfunding going on to defend your cause. Where else is possible to have information about you, about your fights, your crowdfunding? Oh,
there's loads of publications with my name. Just Googling Jordi Casamitjana in Google, lots of things come out. There are magazines that published recently. Just put in my name, you'll see bits and pieces of the stories I said, because obviously things being published, videos being made. There was a period of time I was very involved in the anti-bullfighting movement, and I managed to help the Catalan people to ban bullfighting in Catalonia, and I unified the movement internationally. There's a lot of websites and pages about that story too. So I've been the horse man, I've been the monkey man, I've been the anti-bullfighting man, and now I'm the vegan rights man. But you'll find a little bit there. Just Google it.
Thank you, Jordi, for what you are doing, and hope to see you soon again on
Thank
Veggie
you.
Channel. Okay.
Thanks for talking to me.